to order the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency, and we have a roll call for the City Council.
Council members Raymond.
Here.
Friedman. Najarian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Quintero.
Here.
And roll call for the agency.
Agency members Friedman. Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chairman Draymond.
Here.
And we have your report.
The agenda for the February 23, 2010 joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, February 18, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay, would you read 1A into the record, please?
One is Director of Community Services and Parks regarding preparation of Environmental Impact Report, EIR, for the Columbus Elementary School soccer field joint use project. That 1A is council resolution authorizing city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Impact Sciences, Inc. for preparation of the EIR in an amount not to exceed $143,264, including contingency.
Mr. Starber.
Yes, I go to George Chapman, Director of Community Services and Parks and Staff Report. Charge.
Thank you, Mayor Quintero and Chairman Draymond and the members of the City Council and Redevelopment Agency. The Columbus Soccer Field project is a joint-use project with Glendale Unified School District. Right now, a focused environmental impact report is required for the proposed development of the soccer field at the site. And as you can see, this is the site, the current site of Columbus Elementary School. At this point, and I'll use this to point out, the buildings that are right here have been removed, and the site has been graded. There are some buildings, new buildings here that have been placed there by the school district. Go back. Oh, did I do that?
There you go.
No. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. This is, here are the new buildings here. This is the proposed site. The proposed artificial turf soccer field would be about 55 yards by 100 yards, official CIF size for high school NAYSO soccer. There will be a restroom here, fencing along the property, field lights, a storage area, and some improvements to the parking lot as part of the project. If you can go back, Dave. Here's the site as we see it. This is where the soccer field would be located, the proposed soccer field, if it's approved. As you can see, it is surrounded by residential. This is an apartment building here. There's a lot of residential in this area, so the environmental impact report is going to be very important at this point, and the firm doing the environmental impact report should be one with extensive knowledge of this area, of the city, and of the legal proceedings or legal challenges to any environmental impact report. Again, staff sent, here's another shot of the site from the north, and this is a Days Inn on this side of the building. Again, as you can see, is really surrounded by residential all the way around. Next slide, Dave. Yeah, next one. And why we provided this slide is this would be the 500-foot radius notification site for the project. The RFP was sent out to 13 firms, 8 responded. A team consisting of staff from community planning, community services and parks, and traffic and engineering reviewed the RFPs and chose or is recommending Impact Sciences as the company to do the EIR. Again, the firm has extensive knowledge in this area and has extensive knowledge with legal challenges to EIRs, so staff feels this is the appropriate company to contract out with to do the EIR for Columbus Elementary School.
Mr. Starburn.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of supplemental comments. As noted in this slide, and you'll recall the precondition slide there, this project does provide additional parking.
Yes.
On the south side of the property, in addition to exterior restroom and, of course, lighting, which will be one of the critical focuses of the environmental review. We should note that the City Council directed that we include this project in our capital improvement program 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
2 years ago.
It was to be funded through the Redevelopment Agency tax increment bond funds, which, as you know, got held up for the past year. because of the recession and the impact of the recession on the non-taxable bond market. As you know, that loosened up in the past 6 months, and just recently we sold bonds to provide the funding for this project, as well as other projects in the central project area. I should note that Councilmember Draymond and I recently, in our bi-monthly meeting with the school district, in this case with the president and vice president, who will be the incoming president of the board in all likelihood, they are still very supportive of the project, and the school district has planned on this piece as an instrumental part of this school project. This also happens to be the most park-deficient area in Glendale, which was why back when you considered this 2 years ago, it seemed to make sense utilizing the school district's property to develop a full-service, full-line soccer field here, which would be artificial turf, which would extend its play dramatically throughout the year. But obviously, as George points out, with all the residential in the area, a key review in the environmental review will be the impact of lighting and noise on surrounding residential properties. So with that thought, we'd like to retain this firm to conduct that environmental review.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Chapchin. Were you consulted or any members of your staff on the actual site layout, the plan, the fact that the classrooms were put up on Doran and Columbus rather than sort of where the soccer field is now located? Did they come to you to...
I believe we talked to the school district, it may have been 3-4 years ago, and Jim and
Before
I
the project construction
Yeah.
began, I think from their standpoint what drove that wasn't the eventual siting for the field. It was because they needed to keep their students in the existing older classrooms while they built the new school. The only way to do that was to put the new school over on the northeast corner while they still utilize the old classrooms, and then once the new facility was built, tear down the old classrooms. Our conversations began with them really after they had kind of come to a conclusion on how best to phase the project from their standpoint. And their interest was, is there a way that we can both win by utilizing the site? We've indicated to them from the very beginning that the issue of the potential noise and glare implications on surrounding residential could be very problematic, but we'd need to do the environmental and see.
Okay, because, well, I'm happy to hear that was a reason that they may have done this, because from a site planning perspective and the fact that we're going to do a dual use, I can't think of a worse place to locate a soccer field, quite frankly. And when you drive through Doran and Columbus, especially coming west on Doran, what might have been, what you're up against are just a bunch of blocky buildings, as opposed to what could have been the entrance to a beautiful dual-use park. So, well, I mean, that's the reason. They didn't want to disrupt the elementary school kids, and that's certainly a good reason. But for
if I can, the other piece is there, as you'll see in the site plan on the new facility.
Let's move to the...
Yeah, they have kept all of what used to be their still are their administrative offices. See the L-shaped building on its side down in the lower right-hand corner. So it would have probably been pretty difficult to figure out how to site a field, at least lengthwise in the corner. They also retain bungalows, the existing outbuilding, and the revamp of the administrative offices there, the ones in the center as well as the administrative offices there, then down in the corner. So they have a pretty constrained site, as well as trying to provide both a asphalt play area, because this is K through 5 elementary school. So they need both sort of the kindergarten play area, which if you've been to the site, you've seen kind of right in the middle there where the arrow is, as well as a field for the older kids. So I think it became a pretty problematic site, as well as the problems they had phasing the new construction while continuing to conduct school there.
And I think part of the other problem was the budget was an issue, and they had to use almost tilt-ups. I think they were kind of like modulars.
Yeah, they used a very new style of construction there, which I think they will say was very successful.
Look, there is no question. We've certainly talked about it for many, many years. The only hope for open space activities, soccer, baseball, football, whatever it is, just running around tracks, etc., is in using the elementary, junior high, and high school, period. That's the only hope for South Glendale in terms of developing reasonable parkland, except maybe the San Fernando Road corridor where pieces come up from time to time. So I would like officially, I visited Roosevelt Junior High a few weeks ago, I would like officially to, in public, make sure that we interact with the Glendale Unified School District, with the school board, and with the new superintendent. So when they begin their rehabs, like they're going to do at Roosevelt, that we're in on the ground floor, so that we coordinate, and whatever they build at Roosevelt gives us the potential to come in and also do a AstroTurf and do a nice mixed-use park there. So to me, that's the target population. I mean, Roosevelt would be a tremendous, there's no issue there with parking, there's really no issue there, very little residential, lights, all we have to do is upgrade the lights. It's got a great gymnasium, it's still in very good shape in spite of it being quite old. So I hope on the next project we're sort of brought in from the beginning so we can do some combined
Definitely. We will let them know, and Scott Price is here from GUSD, so, and Scott's sitting in the audience.
Okay. So let's start with comments. Mr. Weaver, then Mr. Raymond.
Yeah. I just respond to that, Mr. Mayor. Some 20, 25 years ago, I chaired Open Space Committee for, I think it was then Mayor Milner, Glendale. We looked at the same concepts, talked with the school district, and you can see where it's got for 25 years. We're still not developing the schools as much as we could. So I won't hold my breath as it'll happen in other schools, mainly because of environmental impacts in residential areas, but maybe the overriding demand will be to make areas for the children. The comment I wanted to ask on the 500-foot zone, to go back, based on experience. Circle ends sometimes in mid-block, almost slicing homes in half. In the past, I know people come in and says, well, I never got a notice. My neighbor did. Does it make any sense at all to adjust where you can to block lines rather than middle of a house or backyard of one, so we avoid having neighbors come in?
Absolutely.
I didn't get one, my neighbor did. If we use a street alignment, maybe that alleviates some of that problem.
And we can do that with
Maybe
community
500 has to
planning.
go to 650, but
They get 1,000 feet?
you're talking postage.
No, it's 500 square foot. If the line is, sorry, this is Hassan Haghani, Director of Community Planning. If the line is going in the middle of a property, every address on that property gets the notice. That's the way we do it.
I know. Okay, take on the east. See Alexander there?
Yes.
Line's going down. Neighbor on the outside complains to the neighbor to us that the neighbor next door on the inside of the line got notice and they didn't.
So, in other words, you're asking us to extend the 500-foot radius?
Just some postage, but to get to a major street rather than your next door neighbor. Because we've had them in here complaining. Why didn't I get a notice?
Would
Well,
council-
you were outside the 500.
Would council
zone.
prefer that we go all the way to the next street over?
Well, look at Pioneer.
We can do that.
That's Lexington. You get all the homes on Lexington, but all the homes on the other side, I don't know if they talk to each other. And it's postage. It's just a thought, to maybe temper some of the complaints we might get as we usually do. What's the thoughts?
Starbird.
I just want to point out in this case where you have very long blocks in this area in particular, east-west, to go to, say, the alley east of Central, which is where the commercial begins, and over to, is that Kenilworth? And then down to the south and up to the north, you're going to be doubling the amount of area, if not greater than that we'll be sending notices to. That may, in addition to additional postage, it's locating addresses, doing mailings, and you really have to ask yourself, well, the people that are over on the far corner of Lexington and Kenilworth, are they really going to be impacted by this project appreciably? I mean, we'll
I don't know, Mr. Hubbard. I'm just talking about a
Yeah.
complaint. Over 13 years, I've heard it in here. My neighbor knew about it. I didn't. Why? And I thought, well, if you just say, well, you're on the other side of the street or something,
But you can always
But
you can
just
always take an
complaints.
argument. Then you're just across the street. Why didn't I get noticed? I'm only across the street.
Okay, and how much is postage for a house? Send a letter out? It's not like it's going to break the bank.
41. Bulk mail, yeah. How much?
Bulk mail? It's not going to cost
We could
that
do it
much.
if that's what council
Just
would
a
like us to
thought.
do.
Not saying to do it, just a thought.
Yeah, although this is Pacific over here,
All the people, even outside, are going to use it. Just where the glare of the light's going to be, how far it's going to reach.
Mr. Draymond.
Councilman.
Mike?
Councilman Draymond. Thank you.
You're saying Mike to me, and I'm thinking, Mike, where's Mike? Sorry. Mr. Chapchin, this site plan, has the design and layout of this changed at all since we held our joint meeting with the school board where we approved this in 2008?
no, hasn't changed.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to add that during 2008, when they actually opened the new facilities at Columbus, they did the ribbon cutting of the new building. And I remember that afternoon, Mr. Weaver was there, I was there, Mr. Starbird was there. It was quite the event. And of course, the buildings had already been taken down, and you just had this field. Tremendous number of families there that day. So I'm not sure that when you look at that 500-foot radius, or that, I think a lot of those families are going to be extremely happy for this. The lighting is an issue, but the new generation of field lighting is far more directional than the old things that we've had trouble with. So I think that will help. In terms of Roosevelt, look, anything that they're willing to get on board with and we can afford to get on board with, I'm happy to
It's just money.
happy to go there too. One of the things that came out of these sort of bi-monthly meetings that the city attends with the school board and the superintendent. One of the byproducts of that was the commitment from the school district to look at their school playground, especially in South Glendale, and to try to accomplish exactly what Mayor Quintero was talking about, to make them more open, but certainly to consider this when they look at rehabbing and designing. That's exactly what the mayor was saying. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I just don't see it as mutually exclusive. I think we should go forward with this and also look at Roosevelt and other sites as well to see if it's feasible.
Okay. Mr. Najarian.
George, I have a question on the proposal process. The lowest bid that we have here from PMC is about 1/3 of what Impact Science has. And even the third cheapest is about a half. So what's going on here? This is really quite a
I can take a stab at that
wide disparity.
and allow the team members to really answer it in full, but I think part of it is they didn't have the technical knowledge or experience necessary for a project like this. If you look at the top four firms, the amounts are very similar, very close. It's beyond that the amounts really differ. This group and the others were technically the most comprehensive and technical experience for a project like this. And this is going to be, lighting may not be the biggest issue. I think some of the bigger issues may be noise. Kicking a soccer ball at night does pose a lot of noise, and traffic may be another issue here in this area. So that's why the team selected this group versus the $40,000 firm or $60,000 firm. Does that answer it, or should I call?
in general, from the legal standpoint, what ordinances and regulations are governmental entities exempt from? Is zoning, they're exempt from zoning, is that correct?
Well, the school district, yeah, I think they're exempt from that. It's the
They've got to comply with the full environmental.
They are subject to the State Environmental Quality Act requirements under the Public Resources Code. That's correct.
And we might point out, the city is the lead agency on this project. So it's so we're the lead agency as opposed to the district in this case.
Yes, the school would be responsible agency.
If they wanted to put, we wanted to put a fence and a gate, there's no issue as to zoning or setbacks or anything like that. We have the authority, sovereignty to do that.
We have the sovereignty to do it. The school district can, by resolution, opt out of our land use ordinances as long as it's for a legitimate school purpose. And that's been broadly construed by the courts. To include athletic fields, I might add, and lighting.
Okay, so George, you're saying that these guys with the 44,000 bid, the 70,000, even the 86, just didn't know what they're getting into at this point.
Okay, any other comments? I have one speaker card, Herbert Milano.
Mayor Quintero, members of the Redevelopment Agency and city staff, my name is Herbert Milano. Well, I've always been a strong proponent of all of these joint use projects, especially those projects that address the needs of those children between the ages of 5 years on to 20. And because so many of the other facilities that we have created or you have created in South Glendale, the mini parks, fail to address the needs of this very active youth group. When I was a soccer coach at AYSO, the place where we used to play was Roosevelt, and it was a terrible field full of rodent holes all over the place, and of course subject to potential injuries. Absolutely that we need soccer fields for our youth in South Glendale. I think that Roosevelt should be the next project that you should consider with the school district. I also believe that R.D. White should also be considered because that's Recreational Planning Area 10, which is the most efficient of all the recreational planning areas in Glendale. What my concern is with regard to this particular need for environmental impact report is that there are so many similarities with regard to what happened at Glendale High School and the soccer field there, especially with regard to the hours of use, the parking, and the noise issue. I was wondering whether the city will be doing any kind of outreach to try to really assess how the community feels before the EIR, so that at least you have an idea that people are really being engaged and they participate fully in this process and support you in the decision. The last thing we want is an environmental impact report and then people coming in 6 months later complaining up and down with regard to it. The hours of use, I think, are going to be very contentious, and it's going to be a significant limitation to what you're going to be able to use, especially with regard to the uses of the lighting and the impact on those buildings next to it. Mr. Nigerian presented the very same thoughts I had with regard to the cost of an EIR, and I was wondering what the city's policies are whenever you don't have the first bidders or the lowest bidder not being accepted. I understand that in some cities, whenever there is a bid and the lowest bid is not accepted, that there is a resubmission, should we say, process to get new bids, basically, with regard to the process, so that you're not simply going down the line and wind up with the fourth or the fifth bidder in this process. I think that has to be perhaps reevaluated. As I want to mention again, I'm fully in support of all of these facilities that address the needs of youth, teenagers, especially as it regards to the areas covered by many of the schools. But I want to say again that I don't think that the only hope for it is the schools. I think that if you look at a map of Glendale, you'll be able to see clearly many open areas that are suitable for soccer fields and other athletic fields. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll move 1A.
Second.
Roll call for the city council.
Council members Freeman,
Yes.
Friedman, Najarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes.
Do
We need a redevelopment?
Move to
No.
adjourn for
we have a motion to adjourn for the...
redevelopment, yes.
have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, the agency is
And a
adjourned.
motion to adjourn
For the council, so moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
There's